So the next speaker is Yohei Oseki from the University of Tokyo. And the title of the talk is Reverse Engineering Human Language Processing. Please, Yohei.
Okay, thank you, Emmanuel. And I want to first thank the organizers for inviting me to this workshop. And so I hope this talk is a great fit with the theme of this workshop of combining linguistic insights and language processing. All right, so in this talk, I'm gonna talk about some of my recent research to build human-like computational models of language processing. So in this respect, I combine linguistics and also language processing in two senses. The one like human language processing and the machine language processing implemented as a computational models in NLP. Yeah. All right, so let me introduce myself just a little bit. So hi, I'm Yohei Oseki, assistant professor at the University of Tokyo and a visiting scholar at the RIKEN Center for AI, basically. And as I described in this introduction, like I combine linguistics and cognitive science and cognitive neuroscience on one hand, and natural language processing NLP on the other. I compare human language processing as measured by using behavior experiments and also neuroimaging experiments targeted at humans. And also I implement computational models of language processing and borrowing insights or models from NLP. And I compare human and the machines to build the human-like computational models. Okay, so this is what I meant by the reverse engineering. Okay, so doing linguistic sciences, language sciences by doing basically engineering like NLP. All right, so this is an agenda of my talk. Right? So I'm gonna lay out background a little bit, and I turn to several recent results of myself. Emmanuel, so this is 15 minutes talk, right?
Yes, it's 15 minutes.
15 minutes, okay, thanks. All right, okay, so here is the overview of the current situation of linguistics and NLP, or mainly NLP or computational linguistics as a branch of linguistics. So there are basically two approaches to study language. And one is, of course, linguistics. Like, linguistics is a cognitive science targeting at humans, assuming some symbolic structures like hierarchical syntactic structures. So we basically assume those hierarchical structures as a kind of inductive bias in a top-down and theory-driven fashion, as you're familiar with, for example, like a generative grammar as proposed by Noam Chomsky. And another approach to language is NLP, natural language processing, right? And the NLP is a basically engineering field to build machines. Okay? And the current NLP field is basically dominated by like a traditionally called connectionist or recently like named like deep learning techniques using artificial neural networks which resemble the human biological neural networks. And here is NLP or like a connectionist NLP assumes that the basically linguistic patterns are learned based on the experience or the text data or input. Right? Yeah, so in this sense, this approach is kind of bottom up and a data-driven fashion. And now the question so what I want to do is to combine those two like scientific approach and engineering approach in linguistics and NLP to do something interesting. Yeah. And actually, several years ago, Chris Manning at Stanford, the former president of Association for Computational Linguistics, ACL, proposed that, hey guys, so we are lucky because deep learning techniques are kind of boosting the performance of current NLP systems. But wait, so don't like just chase the numbers or performance like 0.2% performance increase at the benchmark task of like machine translation, for example. Right? So don't do that, don't just chase the numbers. And Chris Manning basically suggested that we should consider or take insights from the linguistics and the cognitive science, and we should consider the details of human language and how human language is learned and processed and how the natural language changes over time. So I wanna kind of like embody this Manning's suggestion in this talk by combining linguistic insight and cognitive science insights and the NLP. Okay. So in this talk, so for this purpose, I'm gonna integrate the symbolic structures, basically hierarchical syntactic structures proposed in the syntax, and also artificial neural networks currently practiced in NLP towards the human-like language processing. Okay, so I basically, in other words, I basically suggest that just large artificial neural networks are not human-like, not doing processing or learning of languages like humans. And the specific points are the following. So large recurrent neural network grammars I described later outperform the LSTMs, which are the current neural networks models, popular neural networks model, and also state-of-the-art neural network models called transformers. And also, I'm gonna suggest that the large transformers are not always human-like. If we compare the processing of transformers with the processing of the text by humans, and the large transformers are not always human-like. That's the second point. Okay, and I propose to marry, not divorce, the linguistics and NLP to reverse engineer human language processing. All right. So here, I'm gonna propose the architecture called recurrent neural network grammar called RNNG. So this is, as you can guess from the name of this model, right? So this model basically combines the recurrent neural networks, a type of artificial neural network which process languages from left to right in a sequential fashion, okay? And the grammar component, okay? So here grammar means the hierarchical structures like this, okay? So you should know that the strings like the hungry cat is grouped into some chunk called noun phrase, right? Okay? And we combine the words into phrases and the combined phrases into the sentences, right? So we have some hierarchical structures assigned to the sentences. So that's like self-evident assumption in theoretical linguistics, right? And this recurrent neural network grammar is relatively recent model which combines recurrent neural networks and traditional symbolic grammar component. Okay, so therefore I call this architecture symbolic neural architectures. Yeah. Right, so this model has several components, but the one important component is the neural network called LSTMs, which compute the state of the processing. Yeah. Okay. And they use the state to predict the next step of processing of languages. For example, okay, so now we have to generate some specific words or open phrases or close the opened phrases and so on, right? Okay. And in order to create the phrases for hierarchical structures, okay, so we need some like a composition or combinatoric component. Right? And within this specific recurrent neural network grammar, yeah, we use by LSTM. Right? Yeah, by LSTM is a bidirectional LSTM, which encodes the phrases from left to right and also right to left, which this part is unlike humans. Right? Yeah, so we process the sentences in two directions, okay? And combine the representations to get from the representation of the phrase. Okay, so here in this case, NP UVW would correspond to the hungry cat. Okay, so we want to combine the hungry cat to generate the representation of NP. Okay, and So here, so I wanna use this recurrent neural network grammar to predict the processing difficulty of the sentences. Okay, so this model will make some predictions. Okay, so within the sentence, like so John saw the girl in the park and so on, right? So this model makes some probability scores for each word within the sentences. Okay, and I compare the probabilities estimated by this recurrent network grammar with the actual human reading time behavior as measured by eye tracking. Okay? And the humans read the sentences. Okay, so this part is kind of like costly, so therefore it takes time for humans to process that word. But next words are kind of easy and so on, right? Okay. And so we're going to compare the distributions assigned by the model and the distributions measured through behavioral eye tracking experiments by humans. Okay. Okay, and here is our result. So this result is based on the paper by my student Ryo Yoshida. Yeah. And so here, the x-axis is perplexity. This is a NLP standard evaluation metric, and the y-axis is a performance of the like a predicting the human reading behavior. So y-axis is more important than x-axis. Okay. So if you take a look at this figure like overall, so you can see kind of interesting correlation, right? And here, so the triangles, the green triangles, like a left corner are RNG. So this is a specific parsing strategy of the sentences. Yeah. So this is RNG, which process languages in a left corner parsing fashion. Right? Yeah, so this left corner RNG is basically better than basic recurrent neural networks of LSTM like red ones. Yeah? So suggesting that RNGs are generally better than LSTMs in predicting human sentence processing. Okay. And if we zoom into the specific linguistic phenomena, okay, by RNG, okay, so you can see kind of interesting results. Right? So if we scale up the RNGs as comparable to the size of LSTM, okay, so you see red bars basically like, almost always better than the purple bars. Okay? Okay, so here red is over purple bars, right? Okay, and this is kind of exception. And the blue ones are transformers, which I describe later. So I will skip the explanation here. All right, okay, so far so good. Now I want to turn to the state-of-the-art language models called transformers. How many minutes remaining? Like several minutes, maybe?
2 minutes, I think.
2 minutes? Okay. Okay, so here's a transformer. A transformer is basically like a kind of like ignore the recurrence like from left to right processing. Yeah? And instead, the transformers can oversee the sentences like from the like a bird's eye view, right? Okay, so this is kind of powerful model. Okay? And I compare this transformer model against the human reading behavior as measured by eye tracking. Okay? And here's a result. Okay, so this is a result by another student at Tohoku University, Tatsuki Kuribayashi. And interestingly, for English, the big transformers are better than LSTMs. Yeah? But in Japanese, kind of smaller LSTMs are better predictors of human reading behavior. Okay, so suggesting that the large transformers are not necessarily like human-like in predicting human reading behavior. Okay? So this is another point. Right, and as you can see from this figure as well. So if you take a look at this figure, right? So this is for Japanese, right? Okay, small transformers are kind of better in terms of the psychometric predictive power in predicting the human sentence processing. Okay. I see some bell. I'm gonna skip this slide. All right. So in conclusion, okay, so I try to integrate the symbolic structures and the artificial neural networks, for example, a recurrent neural network grammar. And I propose that the RNNG is a human-like language processing model. Okay? And then more like a broader take-home message is that we should marry the linguistic insights and NLP to reverse engineer human language processing. Yeah. And for future direction, so in this talk, only the models, the eye tracking human reading behavior, but I'm planning to, or already extending this approach to human brain activity as measured by EEG or MEG. Yeah? And we try to also reverse engineer language processing happening in the brain. Okay, so I want to acknowledge my student, Ryo, and student at Tohoku University, Tatsuki, and my collaborators and funding institute. Thank you very much.